Hey everybody, Rob here at etrailer.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Curt Class 1 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2017 Honda Accord. Now here's what our hitch is going to look like once we have it installed. The cross tube is going to sit right below the bumper, but the main thing we're going to see is the receiver tube because our Accord does sit a little bit lower to the ground, so we're not going to see this as much unless we're kind of looking for it. It is a Class 1, so it is going to have that 1¼ by 1¼ receiver tube opening, which would be great for bike racks or maybe even a small cargo carrier to make some room on the inside of our Accord. But regardless of how you're going to be using it, all of our accessories are going to mount to the hitch pin hole here on the side. Hitch is going to accept a standard 1/2" pin and clip. Now, these don't come with the hitch, but you can find them here at etrailer.com, along with some locking devices to keep your accessories secure and anti-rattle devices to cut down that annoying rattling sound coming from the back of the hitch. If you are going to be doing some light-duty towing, a couple things to keep in mind. Our hitch is designed to work with a specific ball mount or drawbar, and it doesn't come with a hitch, but again, you can find those here at etrailer.com. Another thing is you're going to need a spot to hook up your safety chains. In our hitch, we have a plate style. It should have plenty of room to get those hooks hooked on. Whether you have the normal size hooks like we have here, you can see we still have plenty of room. You may want to come from the front just because that thick flange there. But even with some of the oversized hooks, like this really large one, still got plenty of room to get them hooked on and to take them off. Now, obviously, the weight capacity is going to be something you want to know about the hitch. You want to make sure it's going to be up to the task that we put it to. Now, our hitch is going to have a 200-pound tongue weight. That's the maximum downward force to the end of the receiver tube. And be able to carry a couple bikes with you, again, maybe a small cargo carrier. But our hitch is also going to have a 2,000-pound gross trailer weight rating. That's how much it can pull, but that does include the trailer and everything we have loaded on it. But again, those are the ratings for our hitch, so you do want to double check your Accord's owner's manual because we don't want to exceed the manufacturer's rating for our car. I'd like to give you a few measurements, and these are going to help you whenever you're looking for accessories for your new hitch, like a bike rack or a cargo carrier. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper, it's right about 3½ inches. Now that measurement's going to help you out when you're looking at folding accessories to make sure you have enough room and they're not going to come in contact with the rear bumper in the upright stored position. From the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening is going to be just over 12 inches. Now at that height, I definitely recommend a cargo carrier or a bike rack with a raised shank. That way we can get a little bit more ground clearance out of it. But now that we've seen what our hitch looks like and gone over some of the features, let's bring it back into the shop and we'll go through the installation process together. To start our installation, we want to come to the back of our Accord and we're going to need to lower our exhaust down. Now before we lower it down, you do want to make sure that it's supported so we don't cause any damage. So I'm going to put up a strap. I'm just going to come about to the rear axle of the subframe here and just find a solid point. Make sure it's going to have the strap below the exhaust. Then I'll just tighten it up and we can slowly loosen it up once we get everything down. When we come to the very back of the muffler, directly above the tailpipe, we're going to have a rubber isolator. Now I just like to take some spray lubricant, just spray them down. Makes it a little bit easier to slide those off. Then you just take a pry bar. I'm just going to pry against the muffler and slide that rubber isolator so it comes off that metal hanger. Now this isn't going to come down that far, so we are going to need to move forward. We'll have another hanger right here on the rear subframe. So let's use the same method, just spray it down and use a pry bar to pry it off. Then once you have it a little loose, we can loosen up that strap to give us a little bit of slack. We can always pull down a little bit to get access above the muffler. Now if we look above our muffler, we're going to have our heat shield. We're going to temporarily remove this. So we'll have one bolt kind of towards the outside edge here, one in the middle, in the center, and then we'll have one on the outside towards the outside of the vehicle here. I'm going to use a 10mm socket to pull all those out, then we can pull our heat shield down. You want to make sure you hold on to all the hardware and the heat shield because we are going to be reinstalling it. There's also one at the back corner behind the muffler here. For now, we can go ahead and set our heat shield aside. So now we're going to move over to the driver's side of the frame rail. It's a lot easier to see because we don't have the exhaust and the muffler in the way, but we're going to go over the mounting locations, and these are going to be in the exact same spot on both sides of the frame. We're going to have one mounting location in the very back. We'll have this hole that's already there, and then we'll move forward on the frame rail until we get to this very large hole. This large hole is going to be our access hole where we get all the hardware in place. So to start out, we want to grab our pull wire. It's going to have a coiled end on it, a little spring. We're going to take that and feed it into the mounting location. And then we're going to start feeding it back to the access hole. Now once you have the tail, or once you have the spring coming out, you want to make sure the tail stays out of the frame. So I'm just going to put a little bend in it, and hopefully that'll prevent it from falling in there. Then we'll grab our square hole spacer block. We're going to slide it over the pull wire and push it into the frame. And then we'll take a carriage bolt and we're going to thread it onto the end of our wire. Then we can push the bolt into the frame, grab the tail end. We're going to pull until we can get our bolt to drop through. Now it's going to be the same process and combination of hardware on the other side of our frame. Now we're going to have another piece of hardware we need to get in place. It's going to be this U-bolt. If we come right to the center of the bottom of our trunk pan, we'll have this tie-down hook here. We just want to make sure we drop that U-bolt to where each leg is straddling over that hook. Now another thing I do want to mention is I always suggest leaving these pull wires attached because it's going to make it a lot easier when we're putting our hitch up to prevent those bolts from getting pushed back in the frame. Because even if they do, we can just pull on that wire and have them drop back down. Now with an extra set of hands, we're going to lift our hitch up. You're going to take your pull wire, feed it through the top, going down. You have to lift it above the exhaust. Then we'll line up our hitch with our bolts. And once we get it in place, we'll remove the pull wire. And I kind of like to push on the hitch. It'll keep the bolt from spinning too much. We'll take one of our flange nuts and loosely get it secured. I want to get at least one on each side, just so the hitch will hold itself up. Now, if you're having a little bit of trouble getting these U-bolts come down through, that's all right. Just want to get that hitch loosely in place. Then we can kind of pivot it and move it around to make sure those legs are dropping through. Then we'll take these smaller flange nuts out of our kit. And again, you just want to get them a couple threads on there, hand tight. Then we'll go back and tighten everything up. To tighten up the nuts that are on the U-bolts, I'm going to use a 9/16 socket. Now with these, I kind of suggest that you tighten one up, move to the other one, and alternate going back and forth so the hitch will go up evenly. And for the hardware on the side of the frame, I'm going to use an 11/16 socket. You want to make sure you come back with a torque wrench and torque all your hardware down to the specified amount in the instructions. I'm going to go back and repeat that for all my remaining hardware. Now before we can put our heat shield back in place, we are going to have to trim it out because our hitch is actually taking up this space. Now whenever you're cutting it out, you do want to check your instructions. It'll give you a pretty good detailed measurements of where to cut. But at the same time, you want to take your time, and you can always go back and trim more, but you can't add any more material back. I'm going to be using a pair of tin snips to cut it out. It is just some thin sheet metal. You can use a rotary tool, some tin snips, just about whatever you have. You do want to be careful though, because once you start cutting it, it is going to have some sharp edges. Once you have your heat shield trimmed out, we can test fit it, and if it's all good, we can put all the hardware back in place. With everything in place, we can put our exhaust back up. Now, I like to spray a little bit more lubricant on there. Makes it a lot easier for those hangers to slide back on. We'll just lift it up and slide that rubber isoler back on, move to the back of the muffler, and do the same thing. And once you have your exhaust secure, we can remove the support strap, and that'll finish up your installation and your look at the Curt Class 1 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2017 Honda Accord.